Good morning. Good morning. Hopefully everyone was here in the last couple of months and were able to hear these two terrific presentations. This is the one I'm delivering today is the third part in a series for planning for 2020. In October, Dale Furtwängler did a terrific program on choosing your direction. And then in November, Bill followed that up with a program on systems and processes for getting things done. So with those two presentations alone, you really should have everything you need to make 2020 successful. You have your direction, you have your execution, and that gets you your results, right? However, there's one thing that could be a fly in the ointment. What you have to have as you move along is you have to stay focused on what you decided. And the focus has been developed because you decided on your direction and your execution. You got that focus now, but how do you stay focused throughout the entire year? I want to talk about a few things that can get in your way in terms of being focused. First, squirrels. Squirrels are those things, I mean, they can be as little as the ding of your email or on the web. I mean, anything, people that interrupt you, anything that distracts you in the moment from the thing that you have determined is your highest priority activity. And based on the execution that you put together with Bill's direction, you should know exactly how you're going to proceed to achieve the goals you want. But squirrels are going to get in the way of that. Second, ideas. Any busy, ambitious, driven business owner or person who is in a larger organization loves ideas. You listen to people, you go to events like this, you read books, you get all sorts of ideas, and any one of those can expand your business, or it could be an idea that is just taking you off the focus that you already decided was where you needed to be when you were thinking more thoughtfully about it. And finally, bright, shiny objects. Those can also take our focus away. And let me give you, when I think about those, we're often not actually distracted by diamonds, which would be really awesome. I would like to be distracted by more diamonds. It is Christmas, but anyway. But anyway, the bright, shiny objects that I think about and that I see in business a lot tend to be technology related. Sorry, Will. Here are a few that you may or may not remember, and I'll only go over a couple of these. The first one on the upper left there was a platform called Blab. And I had a client, or I had a colleague up in the East who had decided that one of the ways he was going to establish his online presence was through having expert conversations with people on Blab. And he did a ton of them, and he spent a whole lot of time, and then Blab died. He had nothing. Another, does anyone remember, on the lower left, does anyone remember Clout? Karen remembers Clout, Will remembers Clout, nobody else, a few. Karen Hoffman remembers Clout, a few people remember Clout. What Clout was an aggregate of your influence on social media and the internet, and you got a number. So you could go out there, if you signed up for Clout, you could go out there and it would crawl out there and look at all the stuff that you've done, and it would give you a number. And if you were a very high number, you were appealing to people as an influencer. If you were a low number, not so much, and you could do all sorts of things to get yourself a higher number. And we know now how important influencers can be in social media and just out there in marketing. Well, I knew a couple of people who built their entire business around Clout. It was training people on Clout, coaching people on Clout, they wrote a book on Clout, and then Clout disappeared. It was just gone. No one was paying attention anymore. Now that's not an indictment of what these people chose, because maybe it led them to something better. But if it's a distraction for you, if it's a bright, shiny object that is taking you away from the focus that you've already determined, it's gonna get you in trouble. And too many of those turns you in to this guy or gal. The guy on the left is the one who lost focus, and his business is the derailed train. Now that one's going to be pretty hard to get back on the tracks, and hopefully if you get derailed, you can get yourself back on better. And we're going to talk about some ways to do that. Now, focus is critical. If you have a challenge with focus, I happen to know that there's a terrific book out there that you can get that will tell you everything you know about focus. Another thing that you can do, some people try, is the New Year's resolution. Does anyone out here do New Year's resolutions? One, John, Bill. And do you tend to stick to them? Do they tend to stay with you the whole year? Yes? Good. So 4, 5 people in the room do that well, and the rest of us do not. So maybe, and that guy clearly didn't do it very well, so maybe that's not our best option either for everyone. Last month, Karen did a terrific program on one word that will inspire you in 2020. And I didn't know she was going to do that program, but the timing was really good. And I liked it because it was focusing it down to one word that will provide inspiration for your personal and perhaps professional development throughout the year. I knew at the time that my program this month is 3 words to guide your business in 2020. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of our time talking about today. I learned this technique, 5 or 6 years ago from a guy named Chris Brogan. And he talked about picking 3 words every year that would guide his business. And I want to give you some guidelines. I want you to see it in practice, and then you're going to do it yourself. So first, some of the guidelines. They are verbs aligned with business goals. And sometimes verbs are also nouns, but what's important is they have to connote some level of action. The second, take your time. Just like that. This is not something that you're going to start doing and you're going to finish it in 5 minutes. You have to let your brain marinate. You have to think about it. You have to look at your direction and your execution, all of that kind of thing, as you're choosing your 3 words. 3 words total. Lots of people like to cheat. They like to do one bullet that's a 2-word or maybe a sentence. That's not it. It's not 3 sentences. It's not 3 phrases. It's 3 words. You have to establish the meaning of those words because, as everyone knows, one person can have an entirely different meaning for a word than you do, and these are important that they establish meaning to you and that you have real clarity about that. And you have to keep these in view. As with most of us, out of sight is out of mind. So you need to have these things in front of you all the time because what they're going to do is influence you subtly, subconsciously, when you may not even realize it. Well, that is what subconsciously is, right? So keep them in view. Let me give you an example. This isn't all about me, but I want to show you what mine were for 2019 so that you can see how this works in practice. These were my words for 2019: stretch, structure, and study. And it is a complete accident that they were alliterative. I did not plan that at all. What it was that as I thought through what I needed in 2019, these are the words I chose. And here's what's really interesting is I didn't actually go set forth to stretch, to structure, and to study. I didn't really do that, but these are my screensaver. And every time I open my computer, that's what I see. So the stretch, one of the things that I could not have expected this year, and Dale, you're going to like this one, you're going to like part of this one, I ended up hiring a coach that was way out of my comfort zone, and that coach strongly encouraged me, and I followed through on increasing my fees to a place that was a real stretch for me. And it made a huge difference in my business, huge. But that was a big stretch. First of all, hiring that kind of a coach, not hiring a coach at all, because I've had coaches, but that kind of a coach, and increasing my fees to the level that I did to change my business. The structure, you may or may not be surprised. If you've known me for a long time, you might not believe this, but I am not a very organized person. I work really hard at being organized because I know it makes my business more effective to be structured. So I had to put some structures in place that I had been avoiding doing for a long time because I just really don't like structure. I want to do what I want to do, which is why I'm my own boss, and why I kind of said no when my husband said, well, I'll be your boss if you want. And then finally, study. Study was important because I'm a dabbler, and I'll learn a little bit and then I'll kind of back off and I'll find something else that's interesting, maybe a bright shiny object, and I'll back off a little bit. So it was really important for me to, when I decided that something was important for my business, to go deeper. I got certified in emotional intelligence assessments and coaching with people, and I wanted to go deeper and deeper and deeper, because the deeper I go, the more helpful I am to my clients. So study was really important. And in some cases, I ran into study opportunities that I hadn't expected. And I think the key with that is it's right in front of my face. So it's in my head, whether it's actually something that I put on my to-do list or not. It's kind of working, it's marinating in there. And I believe things like the earth the karma kind of comes towards you when you start putting your mind in the right place. And these opportunities came. And my business changed in leaps and bounds this year. And I've done this in previous years too, and there have been changes. These just happen to be ones that had a more significant impact than even in the past. So now I want you to try this. I want you to start thinking about your 3 words. And this is just going to be a couple of minutes, but you have on your tables, I hesitated to show you mine, and I hesitate to give you this, because I don't want it to narrow your thinking. But I also know that if I don't give you anything, it might be too hard to come up out of thin air. I didn't make enough of these for everybody at the table, but they were face down, and there's it's a whole list of words. And here's what I want you to do. Before you start diving in there, I don't want you to focus on 3. As you look at a list like this, and if you want to go out and look for positive verbs on the internet, you're going to find a lot. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming. But I want you to look through this list, and I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to do this, and check mark ones that kind of seem intriguing to you. Maybe up to 10 of them, perhaps. Just check them, or if you don't have your own list, you can also write them down on a separate piece of paper. Hey, Mark, was that 5 more until Q&A or 5 more total?
I need Q&A after that.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I'm going to bring you all back for a sec. Does anybody want to share some of the ideas, the words that they came up with, and what they might mean for them in the coming year? And again, these might not be the ones that you settle on, but they're ones that kind of got things going. Gail?
So I did it right away. It just came to me, and it was calls, commitment, and calendar. And for me, I miss my calendar. Not that I miss appointments, but I miss being able to go back in the year and go, when did I do that, or how did, where was I, or whose birthday, and I miss that. And I want, it's going to be really hard for me, but I want to calendar up. I want to make that commitment to be able to do that so I can go back and have that information. And calls means a lot of things. Calls to me just means, of course, being organized enough, making the calls. What calls do I want to make? Writing the thank you notes, following up through email, like what is my process of, and that all of that means calls to me. So I definitely have in my head like what each one is.
Good, good.
So, yeah.
Because establishing your meaning is so critical, because it might mean something to someone else. Someone else might use it, and it literally is just, I'm going to make 5 calls a day or something to that effect, if that's the thing that's really going to impact their business. There was another hand over there. Kathy?
So I had already had my number 1 word,
Yeah.
and that was unstoppable for my business and for me personally. And so I added to those, and I added focus and growth, because I can't be unstoppable without the other 2.
Okay, great.
My 3 words were no, agile, and lead. No, because there's a lot of requests going on, and I'm just going to say no more. Agile, we have an amazing team, and I believe a small team can have a lot of impact in a lot of ways. You don't have to be big and large, but you have to have that mentality of being agile. And then lead. I got a team to lead, got to motivate them, got to inspire them, got to make things happen. So looking forward to it.
And one of the things that's really important about that is, and kind of when you said no, it kind of comes in together there. But if something comes into your idea or the bright shiny object or the idea that doesn't align or there's way out of alignment with those 3 words that you selected when you were in a real focused mind. You weren't all, genned up on the excitement of this new thing. You were really purposefully, mindfully focusing. There was a reason why you put your attention there. So it stops us from just saying, let's do it, to thinking about, is this really in alignment with where I want to be? There was one over here. Bill? Oh, you need a.
Thanks. My 3 words were focus, grow, and then I added one, and that's practice. So practice is very meaningful for me because of a hobby of being a musician, and so practice for me is right hand in hand with grow.
Excellent.
You don't learn more unless you practice.
And so is there a way also that the practice will impact your business in addition to the music?
Yes, because that's part of the that keys right into growth, to learning.
Excellent. Excellent. Dale?
Yeah, my 3 words were play, opportunistic, and flexible. If I do enough playing, then I'm more effective at what I do in business. If I am opportunistic, I'm paying attention to what the market's telling me and I'm taking advantage of it. And I'm flexible in my ability to adapt to what those changing needs are.
Excellent. Anyone else? Tom, okay?
My 3 words were organize, put the systems in place to do the rest of what I'm talking about. Partner, recognize that I'm not going to do it alone and need to delegate, need to establish relationships to help me. And ultimately, 3rd word, complete, finish what I start.
This is great. For the people who said these today, and if they end up being the actual ones, terrific, because sometimes they just do bubble to the surface, but if you're not quite certain, then it's okay. Because again, this is going to start the marinating processes, and this is why you're doing it in December instead of doing it in January. That's why we started this program with Dale and Bill in October and November, to get our brains in the process of thinking about what's going to happen in 2020 so that we're more focused and mindful about it. So going back to our goal, once we have our direction and we have our ability to execute, we need to be able to stay focused. And then your vision for 2020 will be, wait for it, 2020. How many times do you think we're going to hear that next year? Cornball. So I think I have a couple minutes for questions, if there are any. We'll start with John, and then I think the mic's closer to you.
Because I'm closer to you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So my question, you hired a coach that pushed you. What kind of coach was it? I'm just
a
curious.
sales coach. Yeah, and yeah, he was kind of a brutal guy, but it worked.
Kind of a compliment here. What I think is wonderful about lists like this and words like this is that if you look at them, they will speak to you. And if you go down this list, you will find words that reflect back and speak to you, and oh, that's what I'm thinking. Oh, that's what. So it's a wonderful tool for clarifying.
Excellent, thank you. And if you found something that was close but not quite, then it's kind of like the whole brainstorm thing. You just needed the idea to get you over the edge to the next thing that was the right thing. Bill.
So what if I think I have the 3 words and then I find out later those weren't my best 3 words?
It's your business. You can change them.
Okay.
It's interesting. I never have, but yeah, there's no law. No one's going to say, well, you can put a different screensaver up. It's okay. But I would think about what, next time you do the exercise, I would think about what was I thinking about that made me think those were the right words, and what happened that made me think they weren't the wrong words. Was I not thinking expansively enough about my business, or what was it?
Yeah, because I just don't want it to be a squirrel that caused me
Yes.
to rethink them.
Yeah,
Right.
and you know, the other thing is you can always put something in your notebook that says, here's a word I want to think about for 2021. And maybe by the time it gets to that December, it'll be like, I don't need that word, but maybe it would be a good one. Because we're forward thinkers. I think 5-year plans are almost laughable now because things are moving so fast. But yeah, you can go into the next year. That makes sense. Any other questions? Thank you very much.